All right, welcome everybody to another episode of the Inside in Tennis podcast. Mitch Michals here, all part of the Believe Network. We've got a lot of great content. As always, this show is available on all your podcast platforms. Miami Open is in the rear view. We got Clay Season on deck. Joining me now, he's a former number one in doubles. He's won a bunch of titles, 55 to be exact, but who's counting? How does he manage all these gigs he has in tennis? No one really knows. Coaches, broadcasts, ATP elite, as they say. Mark Knowles, friend of the program. Welcome back to the show. Knowles, it's fun to chat with you. Excited to get to it.
Thanks, Mitch. Appreciate it. Always a pleasure to be on. And boys, exciting times in tennis right now.
It is. And I did have one thing I wanted to get to because we usually just start riffing and it's great. But, you mentioned the broadcasting and we can hear you on Tennis Channel, but you're somebody that's worked and has had glowing reviews with multiple people. So kind of relate that to sports and to tennis. How do you adjust and how do you find chemistry with different partners? Because I love the roster. Obviously, I'm biased to Tennis Channel, but so many different styles, so many different partners. How do you kind of balance that and find chemistry when you're in the booth with different people?
Yeah, actually, it's kind of nice, obviously, right? We got great diversity, people from different backgrounds and so forth with different journeys. And, I think the biggest thing is being a huge fan of tennis, not just a player, but, obviously growing up, idolizing a lot of people when you get to work alongside legends like Navratilova, Austin. It's pretty cool. And then, colleagues of my own, like Curry or guys like that, we grew up together. So it's a great mix. Work with Ted Robinson, absolute legend while I was playing, always listening to his broadcast. So it's always fascinating. You learn from each person, each partner that I've ever worked with. I take something from it. Brett Haber, incredible professional, learned so much from him. So it's been valuable in my journey, really, as a broadcaster. Started off obviously as color, kind of shifted more over to play-by-play. Truly have a passion for it, really enjoy it, love it. So there's just a respect there for me amongst my peers. Everybody's different. Like I said, everybody has their own angle. And, it's been really a pleasure for me to kind of learn a little bit of something from each one of them.
Yeah, it's been great. And I think that's the beauty of tennis. There's just so many matches, so many hours of the day that gives different opportunities and different combinations. I'm always intrigued when the week starts. And, hearing you and Monica Puig was another one last week that, got to bounce off each other.
Alongside an Olympic gold medalist, just kind of obviously having played at the same time as she did, kind of you see her from afar, but then all of a sudden when you work with somebody, you get to know their personality, you get to know what motivates them, and you get to learn about their journey, which is, we all have our own journey. It's very specific, it's different, but we're all trying for the same destination.
Well, it's great to hear you guys in Miami, the Miami Open, as I mentioned, in the rear view, focusing first on the men's side. The champion, out of nowhere, unexpected, Jakub Mensik, the 19-year-old from Czechia. First tour title, a Masters 1000, so pretty nice if you can get it. But what he did, how he started really going through the draw, beating Draper, who won Indian Wells. There's so much to this backstory, but it all comes down to that match with Novak Djokovic, his idol, his tennis hero. And he beats him in straight sets. He's perfect in tie breaks. He's a cool customer under pressure. The serve was bumping, and I got to admit, Mark, he played a lot like Novak Djokovic in that match. So getting into your thoughts of the matter, Mensik gets the job done. He does what's really impossible to do, beat Djokovic in a final and prevent him from winning that 100th title. But how did this kid take the leap? Someone that we all thought was going to get here. How did it all come together in this moment?
Yeah, it's pretty wild. I mean, you just summed it up with many different factors where you're just like, what happened? Impossible. He went for his first title. Novak's going for 100. It's his idol. He grew up, he's playing the game because of Novak, gets a chance to play him in a Masters 1000 final. The list goes on, but one thing it does tell me, and it's interesting, right? For all of us athletes, former athletes, those of us with kids, trying to help them on their journey, right? Like, if you put in the work and you keep believing in the process, your time will come, right? And you almost feel like it's destiny, right? Everything went his way, as you mentioned. Didn't lose a tiebreaker. Took out Jack Draper from the start, the champion from Indian Wells, somebody playing at the highest level, and then continuing taking out Taylor Fritz in a battle. If you take Taylor Fritz out, to me, he's one of the best competitors on the tour. To win a close match, final set breaker, and then, most people would be like overwhelmed with the occasion. You're going up against your idol in the finals of Masters 1000. And what does he do? He kind of replicates Novak and just plays a little bit better than Novak. Obviously, his serve was the standout. Novak had real trouble reading his toss and picking locations on the return, which is pretty amazing because Novak is by far and away the greatest returner we've ever seen, and he can pick anyone apart on the serve. So, I mean, the superlatives are endless. I mean, just remarkable. You know, we started the Miami Open, kind of more of the focus, of course, was on the other teenager, right? João Fonseca, coming off the brilliant run in the Golden Swing. So exciting. Obviously, the Latin American, South American crowd in Miami. But, you know, like you said, a guy from Czechia just went about his business and, let me just win my first title at a Masters 1000 and beat the greatest player of all time.
I'm glad you brought up that Fritz match because, yeah, it was a couple points were like 4-all in the third set tiebreak, and he didn't go away. I mean, I kept coming back to just how cool he was under pressure, how he just handled the moment. It was very mature in his approach, which is so rare. It's human nature to, let the moment get to you at this stage. But and there's so much to it. But Mark, you mentioned his serve, and yes, like we've talked about it, we've discussed it. His first serve is great. His second serve doesn't really, strike fear in a lot of opponents. I think that's fair to say. But, and Jim Courier brought this up on the broadcast, if Novak's having a tough time reading it, what does that say for the rest of the tour? What is it about? Is it the toss? If you can go into the weeds a little bit, what's causing fits for not just Djokovic, for the players? Why can't they understand what he's doing? Why is Mensik so good at disguising that serve?
Well, I think a couple factors at play. I mean, as Jim Courier mentioned, Tennis Channel did a brilliant job of showing a nice illustration. They had a nice graphic showing that there wasn't much movement in the ball toss depending on what serve he was hitting. And if anyone knows it, it's Jim Courier, right? Because one of his greatest rivals was Pete Sampras, who was the best I've ever seen at the same toss hitting 4 or 5 different serves. So obviously that freezes the returner. Novak, I think, obviously he's played him once before. He practiced with him a couple of times, but there's not much history there. So, there were no real tells. I mean, credit goes to Mensik. Obviously, he, like I said, there wasn't much variation in his ball toss, so he was able to hit a ton of spots off the same ball toss, producing various different serves. And, if you have Novak in a moment of pause on return, you've done something special. And, the numbers reflected, I think it was over 55% serves unreturned from Mensik against Novak Djokovic, the greatest return of all time. I mean, maybe if you're starting on the service line, that's possible, but not a regular serve. So, time will tell. Obviously, guys, as they get to know him a little bit better. I mean, obviously, it's his first time. He's 19 years old. He's relatively new on the scene, but clearly you can see right out of the gates, he's got a talent there where he's able to, have a lot of disguise off of that ball toss, which, combine that with power, it's tough to beat.
I love that he's had the same coach since he was 16. There's that foundation that's set up. He's been, building to this moment. And yeah, I mean, practicing with Novak, we were joking, like, is Novak just trying to find out the threats and be like, hey, let me work with these guys and see what I can tell. But that also shows you how long Novak's been on top, right? Mensik was born when Novak was 18, essentially a pro already a pro. So he's got a lot to study on Novak and, doing it so well. It was remarkable. I honestly, Mark, don't think Novak played too poorly. Sure, he was serving at a clip that was like literally unprecedented even for him in the Dimitrov match, in the Korda match. Serve dipped a little. The conditions were tough. We know it was humid and we know he had the eye issue, but, he was just a little off, and Mensik, to his credit, played a little bit better than him.
Yeah, I mean, watching it, Novak, of course, was serving maybe the best percentage-wise throughout the entire tournament. Still served pretty good in the final. I believe it was, I looked at it quickly, it might have been 76% still, which is a crazy number. You can fact check that, but I just looked at the stats quickly. But that's still a great number. And like you said, listen, Novak, and I think we heard from him after the match, he said he didn't play his best match ever. Of course not, because he doesn't lose if he plays his best tennis. But the reality is he still played a very high level, and Mensik was able to just stay there. Even in that second set tiebreaker, it was 4-2. Mensik kind of had a routine backhand that he hit kind of halfway up the net. And you thought, oh, okay, finally, the moment's gotten to him. Not to be, right? He just reset, stayed strong mentally, and then played at such a high level there for the last couple of points to seal victory. So, I think full credit goes to Mensik, but as we all know, and anyone that's ever played Novak or seen Novak play, it's very hard to sustain the level from start to finish because he brings such a high level. And, that's what Mensik was able to do. I don't think there was any of us that thought he could do it from start to finish. He obviously did, along with his camp, and full credit to Mensik.
Did you get a little nostalgic when Novak brought the sawdust out?
Yeah, I was waiting for Lendl to appear in the box alongside Andy Murray.
Yeah, it was interesting. I mean, he was trying to figure out his grip. Obviously, the footing was an issue too. But yeah, it comes down to Mensik just making plays and making shots. And there's one thing you can say about Novak too, right? And it bears repeating. He is so gracious in defeat. I think it helps when it's somebody that's looked up to him and they spend time together. But as someone that has won a lot, so maybe isn't used to losing like some of the other players, he handles defeats with class, and it's something I think should be commended.
Oh, 100%. I mean, listen, Novak should be commended on all fronts. I mean, this guy just, the greatest champion of all time. The records speak for themselves. Obviously, we had some amazing champions with Roger Federer and Rafael Nadal. And, they're all three GOATs in my mind. There's no point in even trying to decipher, but obviously Novak is just phenomenal. And then the fact at his age now, I mean, when I see him at the Miami Open and I look at him and I go, wow, this guy is, he's out there 45 minutes pre-practice, doing all the warm-ups, doing all the warm-up routines, doing shadow tennis. And I'm looking at myself going, oh my goodness, how can you be this professional, this diligent when you've won as much as he's won? I mean, where do you find the motivation? I mean, really, I don't know if we've ever seen it. I mean, I'm sure there's maybe other athletes in other sports that are somewhat comparable, but man, I mean, he is, we've had special times. Obviously, there was some time there where we thought Federer was defeating Father Time. Rafa did as good a job as he could with all the physical troubles that he had. But I mean, you talk about really challenging Father Time. I mean, Novak is, and it's not surprising, right? Because one thing about Novak is there's not one stone unturned, right? I mean, he brings out the gloves. I mean, this guy, he dedicates himself 150% to every aspect of it. And like you said, being gracious, I mean, it can't be easy. I mean, obviously he's still motivated to try to get 100 titles. Obviously would have gotten 7 Miami Open titles, breaking the tie with Andre. There's still big things. Nobody ever wants to lose, but he's so gracious. And I think anyone that knows Novak, and I've been fortunate enough to get to Novak fairly well over my career and even post-career. I mean, he's always gracious to me, always there when you need some time with him. He'll talk about many different issues. So, I mean, nothing but great things to say about Novak Djokovic.
Yeah, and I think it's also safe to say that this is the best. I mean, this is the best level we've seen of anyone his age. Like what he's doing is he's redefining the standard. I would go one step further, Mark. It's a tough loss. I know 100 is that nice round number that would have been great for him, and I just think he's rejuvenated. He needed, he wanted a title. Everybody wants a title, but this was something that was great for him, making that run to the final, going toe to toe with one of the next rising stars. He, had the injury. His body wasn't cooperating, as has been mentioned, but his main goals now that he has the Olympic gold medal is more slams. And now going into Clay and Wimbledon, I think this is what he needed to get him back in the game and prove to himself that his body can hold up.
Yeah, I mean, listen, I'm probably like most. Yeah. I'm never going to say his time is up just because he's disproved that so often. I mean, and Australia was a prime example of that, right? Takes out Carlos Alcaraz, playing at an extremely high level right there. Obviously, the body is going to be challenged now at his age, but it's not because of him not doing absolutely everything possible to have his body fit to deal with the rigors of a Grand Slam event, 7 matches, 3 out of 5 sets. The reality is, unfortunately, and he's done it before, by the way. He's gotten through with physical ailments and still been able to win majors. So I think, listen, there was a little bit of a hangover after that Australian. I think he was super disappointed because he knew he was at the level to win that event, possibly. Body gave out. And, it was good to see in Miami that he kind of, like you said, the level kind of came back. And even for him, and I think he's very pragmatic in his approach. He's very honest with himself. He's like, listen, my level hadn't been there the last couple of weeks, feeling better here in Miami. Yeah. And, Novak feeling good is danger for everybody else.
It's what happens when you're on top for so long. You got a new generation of players that just studied you. Like Riley Opelka said, they've got nothing to lose because they've watched you. They're literally their whole lives, which is making us all feel old. But it's cool to see a veteran still at the top. And gives us to some good storylines for clay season. The last thing on the men, Mark, I just wanted to say, future looks as bright as ever because you look at all these players that have had success. They were all playing at the next gen like a couple months ago. You're talking about Fonseca, Arthur Fils, who's been tearing it up with his forehand and his overall game. You add Lerner Tien, what he's done. Now Mensik Suddenly we the depth is there again. It's funny how quickly things can change with in a couple months. You've got some new guys, new superstars ready to take over men's tennis in the future.
Yeah, I think it's fair to note. You just brought it up. I mean, what a great addition by the ATP Tour, by the way, the Next Gen Finals. I mean, if you go back and look at the last couple of years, the players that played in Next Gen, within a
Yeah.
year to 18 months, they have announced themselves near the top of the game, which is it's crazy, right? Exactly what you said. I mean, Fonseca, Mensik, Lerner Tien. I mean, it's Alex Michelson. Like,
Yeah.
there's just a young crop that's popping up, and we still have, obviously you're blessed with Sinner and Alcaraz, and then we got a whole bunch of other players, like Tsitsipas, Zverev, Shapovalov coming back, playing some of his best tennis again, right? Like it's just a real exciting time, really exciting time.
I'll do one better. I wasn't even sure if this would work. I'll admit my misconceptions were wrong. Moving it to post the schedule when they did, it's essentially the warm up for the season. I think it's great that these guys are hitting the ground running. So I think the schedule move actually was great for them.
Yeah, I think it's good because obviously, like you said, once they shut down the season, they gotta have a couple of weeks to prepare. But then it obviously becomes kind of a launching pad for the following season. So I think it works well in the calendar. I mean, calendar's always a touchy subject, but especially for the young guys, I think it works pretty well.
We got Mark Knowles here on the Inside in Tennis podcast talking Miami Open and other general topics in the game we know and love. On the women's front, it was another rematch of the two best hardcore players on the women's game. Aryna Sabalenka defeats the player that you work with, Jessica Pegula, in a final to win Miami for the first time. And on the Sabalenka front, starting with the champion, she looked dominant. She looks like she is the deserved alpha right now of this sport, what she's been able to do. And when she's at her best, it's a pretty tough level. I remember hearing other athletes talk about when you get into the zone, who is the best, who has the best ceiling. Sabalenka's A-level mark is just tough to beat. And it was all on full display in that final and really in that whole tournament in Miami.
Yeah, it's pretty remarkable, really, when you look at Sabalenka's career, because, to me, the last 15 months, she has become a completely different player. I mean, she was always extremely good. Obviously won that first Australian Open, but even after the first Australian Open, she had dips mentally throughout the season where she seemed to get frustrated and, things could unravel a little bit. But in the last 15 months, I mean, unfortunately, being part of the Pegula coaching team, we've had 3 tough losses to Sabalenka in some big finals. Obviously, the finals in Cincy last year, and then the finals at the U.S. Open, and then once again here in Miami. But the reality is, it's tough to do in sports, right? You hate to lose, but kind of got to tip your cap, right? Sabalenka's been able to play some great tennis, but more importantly, she's been able to produce elite level tennis when the scoreline was tight. I think Jess had lost 4 consecutive sets, 7-5 to her before losing this last one, 6-2. And, it wasn't much that Jess did wrong. It was, full credit to your opponent. Obviously, Sabalenka brings a skill set to the court that's tough to match, right? She's very strong physically, tall, moves exceptionally well. She's added a couple elements to her game, the slice off the backhand. She'll move forward. She'll hit a couple drop shots to mix in with the power. And then, like I said, she's made, to me, obviously the serve has gotten so much better. She had some issues there with the second serve for a while. That's no longer an issue. But to me, the biggest stride she's made is mentally, even, like she said, she had some tough losses this year as well, which she hasn't had much over the last 15 months. But, credit to Madison Keys, right? Madison was able to play at an elite level to get by that one. And then, of course, Andrey Rublev to get by her in Indian Wells. But, Sabalenka crushed in the first set, so you got to give credit to Andrey Rublev to stick around, find a way to claw back. But the reality is Sabalenka's playing big matches every week, right? She's in the finals. She knows how to deal with these situations very well. And, she fully deserved to win the final. Obviously, it was a super close first set. Once again, 5-all. But if you take the clip, the last 2 games of that first set, I'm not sure Sabalenka's ever played better.
It was,
I mean, so a tough one, but, gives the rest of the field, Jess and the rest of the girls, something to shoot for, right? I mean, Sabalenka's raised the bar. She's clearly the best player in the world. And it'll be interesting as it shifts to clay if she can maintain that level. Obviously, she's super comfortable on the clay as well.
Yeah. Yeah, sometimes you just have to, talk about how I don't enjoy liking you and just steal her margarita at the Tennis Channel desk. I mean, that's but you're right though, and the mentality is the thing. We knew about the power, we knew about what she can do on the court. the phrase that I kept coming back to, Mark, was picking your spots. She just knows when to go full bore, when to take chances, when to play percentage tennis, and it's tough.
And it becomes tough for an opponent because you'll get all of a sudden one or two missed balls out of nowhere from Aryna, and then so you'll think like, okay, her level's going to drop, and then she'll respond by hitting 3 clean winners, off both wings, and then you're like, oh, okay, I guess the level's not dropping. So you got to give credit to Sabalenka. I mean, just playing at a high level.
Certainly is 23-4 on the year, and I saw the stat 23-1 in her last 24 matches in these United States. So that's where she's at on the year. But for Jessica Pegula, it was another great run and really an opportunity, starting really with Austin, that title, getting back on track, proving what she can do on these hard courts, finding success, beating Raducanu in that really physical, brutal match in the conditions late at night, and then Eala, who was the story of the tournament. And you can speak to this too, Mark, somebody that you don't have a lot of tape and a lot of scouting on riding the waves. So to get to the final, to lose to the best player in the world, nothing to obviously hold your head on, and really a nice stepping stone as the season keeps rolling along.
No, great event for Jess. Obviously had a great U.S. Open run last year. Had a little bit of a hangover in the fall, but coming into the season, myself alongside Mark Merklin and the rest of the team knew that we had a lot to build on, right? She was playing some fantastic tennis last year, and going into Australia, playing really well. Obviously, finals there in Adelaide, lost to Madison in a tough 3-setter. And, Jess rightly predicted, as she told me after the match, if she plays like that, she'll win the Australian Open. And I'm like, yeah, she could. And then obviously we know what happened after that. So, Jess was aware of how well she's playing and, wanted to build on that. Obviously, lost a little bit earlier at the Australian Open, but once again, Danilovic played a terrific match. It wasn't so much that Jess didn't play great. So it's been really about focusing on being as consistent week in, week out, bringing the level, realizing that on any given day, right, everybody's good out there. They can, match your level and sometimes exceed it. So you've got to be willing to kind of resist and be really strong. And so, in Indian Wells, I think Jess played really well as well. Lost to Svitolina in a tough match night, a little bit slower. And Svitolina's playing, maybe you'd have to argue her best tennis of her career. I know she's been as high as 3 in the world in the past, but having followed her career for a long time, I think she's playing the best tennis of her career. So once again, it's about keeping it positive for Jess coming into Miami. It's kind of her second home. Of course, she trains and lives in Boca, so she loves playing there in Miami and is comfortable. She always goes there for Bills Dolphins games, as she said. But the court surface is suits her game really well, and she's always wanted to do well there. So she was excited, and like you said, it wasn't easy. There were some tough matches. Got 6 in the third against Kalinskaya. Could have gone either way. As you mentioned, Emma, of course, such a great player, former Grand Slam champion, getting her groove back, playing really well. And then Eala. I mean, what can you say about that youngster? I mean, as great a story as Mensik is, I mean, I don't know if you saw the average ranking of the players that Eala lost to coming into the event in her last 7 events. I mean, it's probably an average.
Wasn't high.
Yeah, it's probably an average about 180, 200 in the world, right? And then she goes on to just, beat a couple of Grand Slam champions, a couple of top 5 players, and played at a crazy level. I mean, even against Jess, right? You felt like Jess was maybe had control of the match after she came back in that first, and then Eala just, so brave, so courageous for a young person. How did they find that belief? And, made Jess, work super hard for that match. So super impressive by Eala.
I do want to get back to Pegula, but the Eala thing is fascinating because I agree. It was so unprecedented in a lot of ways. And where she comes from, again, Philippines, only player ranked, the attention she drew, which was great, just her general attitude, how she was, passionate, got the crowd involved, was dancing a little bit too. I want to ask you, though, on the outside, what are some things you saw with how she played? Because, again, we hope it goes on. We know that history is filled with people that weren't able to back up such tremendous success. So what are the ingredients that you saw, that could lead her to stick around, to keep being and playing at a top level?
Well, I think first of all was courage. I mean, you talk about brave. I mean, starting, obviously one thing I watched the Keys match, and, Madison's got a really good kick second serve. This girl was standing 3 feet inside, taking it early and just swatting winners. And I was like, wait, you're playing the Australian Open champion. Like, you should have a little bit more respect. But, it's just that courage. She plays, she confronts the ball on the bounce. She kind of stays on the baseline. She plays a lot like Leylah Fernandez, to be honest, almost a carbon copy. But I think her ability to really believe in herself in big moments. Obviously, she's tricky, right? With the lefty serve. We all know, the lefty spin is different. Doesn't come in at the greatest speed, but it also comes in with a lot of spin. Tougher for the returners to generate. That'll probably be her biggest challenge, though, right? Because that was a novelty, really, at this level for most of the players. They hadn't really faced anything like that. And so now I think the biggest challenge for her is going to be, okay, once the returners figure out how do I approach returning that type of serve, it might get a little bit tougher, but she's only going to improve, right? Her serve's only going to get better. She's only going to grow from the belief that she got in Miami, the fact that she can play that way. Take out Iga. The way she played against Iga, of course, Iga didn't play her best match, but that was mostly because of the way she disrupted the rhythm of Iga. She took the ball early. She didn't let her breathe much and took away time. Pretty amazing. Like I said, for somebody with no experience really at the tour level, playing 100,000 events. She was in Mumbai. She was all over the map coming in, which of course is normal. That's the stepping stones as a youngster. But then to get the wild card in Miami and just start dispatching the names that she did, pretty impressive. It's going to be fun to watch. Another name to add to the mix. And coming into this season, obviously being part of the coaching team for Pegula, I've kind of made my list of, a lot of people that are going to be really good. And I honestly thought coming into this year, a couple players coming back from maternity leave, like Belinda Bencic, so far stars like Andrey Rublev moving up. I think this might be one of the deepest years on the women's tour. Like there's a lot of really good players. Of course, Sabalenka she's kind of the standout. It's going to take something special like a Madison, like an Andrey Rublev. It's going to take a special match to beat her.
I love that. I love the idea, and we don't have to get into it, but the list that, okay, coaches were scouting, all right, these are the players that could be good. These are the players I'm watching, and then we also have the surprises. As a fan, it's also great because more great players are just going to push the level. You have to get better to swat off all these threats, so to speak. So it's great. And for Eala, too, I think learning at the feet of the greatest helped, too. Being able to work under the Rafael Nadal Academy tree was great for her, and awesome stuff. So hope she keeps it going. The one note I did have going back to Jesse for a second is you mentioned that U.S. Open hangover, and I think that's something that only a few people, unless you've really lived it or been around it, you can experience. So if you could kind of expand on what that's like, right? You make this run of your life, and then the season doesn't stop. You have to follow that up. There's a lot of real pressure there that I think is hard to deal with and might take some time to get your feet and your legs back up under you.
Yeah, all players deal with it differently, right? But, I think Jess has been pretty transparent that her goals were to make a Grand Slam final and ultimately win one. So she reached that first goal, obviously making a Grand Slam final at the Open. But, for a player, especially when you're going for that first major, we see it a little bit on the men's side for Sasha Zverev, right? Like there's disappointment in the end, even though it's super positive, it's incredible. You would have signed up for it before the tournament. But the reality is when you lose that last match, having been so close to your ultimate goal, it can be tough, right? Like where do I go from here? Like, oh, okay, there's not another slam till, January, mid-January, Australian. The tour shifts to Asia, which can be tricky for some players as well. So like you said, I think it would almost benefit some players that, hey, that would be the end of the season, right? Okay, let's take stock, boom, close the book, and let's get ready for the new year. But it's not the case, right? Tennis, there's still a lot of big tennis to be played, obviously, after the U.S. Open, a couple of 1,000 events, and then leading into the WTA finals, and of course the finals on the men's side as well. So it's tough. And I think that's the biggest challenge of being a tennis player is that, the season essentially runs, 10, 11 months, 10 and a half, 11 months. And you've got to try to sustain that level, that intensity throughout the entire season, which is not easy to do.
Were you like, okay, I know these goals we have, but you got to play well in Texas. That's my state. Was that kind of the speech?
Yeah, she'd never been to Austin, and she had told me at the end of last year she committed to come to Austin. So I was like, awesome, cool. It's a great city, first of all, and Texas is great. She spent a little time in Dallas as well when we first started working together. She likes Texas. So, I think she was comfortable, and yeah, it was nice for her to get a win. And more importantly, it's always nice to get a win at any level. And that was one of the things I focused on with her, is like, it doesn't matter if it's a 250, 500,000 Grand Slam. It's tough to come to a tournament and leave without losing. It's a special feeling for a player.
Yeah, and you also had too. I mean, McConaughey was in attendance, so right, like
Yeah.
you have to play well when he's there.
Yeah, that's another level. I mean, I think her level went up once she met McConaughey. She seemed to have a little spark in her step.
He loves tennis. That's great. We love it. We love him being involved and being passionate about the sport. So I know this was, and like this, just putting a ball on it. It was a great Miami Open. I mean, the game is in. I feel like I've said it, but I really do mean it. Like the game's in a good place with some of these young stars and veterans and mothers coming back from maternity leave. Like the ingredients for all these great players to put on a show. It just keeps building, keeps getting deeper.
Yeah, I mean, it's pretty remarkable, right? You think, like, on the men's side, you think, okay, it's Sinner, Alcaraz. Of course, Sinner wasn't there. Alcaraz lost early. Like, okay, what are we gonna do? Oh, Novak's back playing it at a high level, and then Jakub Mensik. Like, okay, we didn't have him penciled in. Of course, people were focusing on Fonseca, but the excitement's incredible. And then, like I said, in the women's game, I had a list, and I have a list, and they're categorized. And Eala was not on that list, but now she's on that list, right? So it's like right when you think you've got it all figured out, new stars emerge, new youngsters, and what a great time for the sport. Just another awesome time to be part of tennis.
It really is the best. A couple quick hitters here with Mark Knowles before we wrap this up here on the Inside in Tennis podcast. A couple news and notes from the tennis world wanted to mention. One story, got a lot of press, got a lot of coverage, deservedly so. Daria Kasatkina is going to be representing Australia now. So she makes the big change, obviously big for a lot of different reasons, but switching nationalities, not the easiest thing. Australia was welcoming Mark. And yeah, I think we're pretty much in agreement. Like we just want to see her happy and playing her best tennis. And we know the Aussies are very welcome. So I hope big things are on the horizon for Daria.
I'm curious to see if she's going to be able to adopt the accent.
It's going to take some practice.
That's going to be key. But I mean, Daria is one of the nicest people you'll ever meet, right? She's got such a great personality. So, great for her. I actually didn't know that was in the mix. So I was as surprised as anyone when I read it. But obviously she's thrilled, and it's going to be fun to watch her representing Australia.
Yeah, got the new Aussie #1 too. So that's nice. She's the number one in her country.
Slide right in there, right? All of a sudden the Fed Cup team got a lot stronger.
They did. And then the other story that was big, and I think for a couple of different reasons, Andrey Rublev working with Marat Safin, which I love having Safin back in the mix, Mark. I think, he's great. And thinking about Rublev and needing a voice and needing, kind of maybe some semblance of just stability. We know Safin was an idol for a lot of players, especially these Russian players. So if there's someone he's going to look to and lean on for respect, I don't think he could have gotten somebody different, somebody more highly regarded in that tennis circle. So Safin and Rublev, an interesting pairing, and I'm curious to see how it goes.
Yeah, I mean, listen, Andre, I think it's spoken that he'd been speaking to Marat over the last couple of months, kind of more from a support standpoint, how to deal a little bit with the anger, the frustration, the intensity, the expectations that players put on themselves. And I think Marat's been very helpful in that regard. Marat's one of my favorites. Obviously played alongside him on tour. Good friend of his. I don't know anyone that doesn't like Marat. He's got such a great personality. He's so relaxed. I think he'll be able to kind of bring it down a notch for Andre. I mean, Andre, of course, plays an elite level, but I think he's so tough on himself, and he knows it. Listen, full credit to Andre, right? He's kind of tackled the situation head on, trying to not only find help, but find people around him that can support, feel what he's feeling, help explain the emotions. And, I think it's a great hire. I'm happy to have Marat back around. Like I said, he's one of the most likable people ever. I think the female crowd's going to be super excited to have Marat back. Always a huge favorite. I mean, my wife loved to have Marat around all the time. So she'll be excited when she comes on tour with me that he's around. So good on all fronts.
Just adding him to the mix. Yeah, another great reason. We got to have a diverse crowd, so that's good. Yeah, I'd love to see Rublev back in the mix. He's had a couple early upsets, which are, unfortunately a new trend for him. So hopefully he gets back on the right course. And then the last thing I had, because I know how accomplished you were in the doubles game, but the Sunshine Double won by Arevalo and Pavic. I mean, look, this team's been the best in the world, and win Indian Wells, win Miami, doing it in pretty dominant fashion. It's funny how the things change, and now we have a new doubles top team that's really just running roughshod over the rest of the crew.
Yeah, I mean, Arevalo and Pavic, they are playing at such a high level. I was excited to see it. Obviously, I remember when Nestor and we did it back in 2002. It's a goal when you're a top doubles team to try to go back-to-back Sunshine double. It's tough to do. Conditions are different. Also tough to do because once you win one, don't have a letdown, especially in doubles where the margins are pretty slim with the no-ad scoring and the match tiebreak. But having watched Arevalo and Pavic play, I mean, they are tough to beat. I mean, what a dangerous combination. Obviously, the lefty with Pavic, great serve, moves around, great returner. And Arevalo, I mean, he's everywhere. I mean, his wingspan is crazy, right? So, they're playing at a super high level, and credit to them. It's not easy. A lot of great doubles teams out there, a lot of great doubles players. So, phenomenal run to get the Sunshine double for those guys.
Definitely an impressive feat as we, turn our attention to clay. So we got a lot of clay coming forward. I can't wait for that. We're going to go right to Charleston for the women, Houston for the men, for the U.S. Clay Court Championships, and then we're in Europe as the season just moseys along. Well, Mark Knowles, this was great. I do have to ask you, how's it going being like the general manager of like a stable of athletes now? Is that like the official title?
It's fun. Obviously, Graham's, they got spring ball kicking off year 2 for him, doing really well, exciting. And then my other son, finished up the football, but, still plays 7-on-7, which is huge at this age. And then plays a little hoops with Jermaine O'Neal's national team, Drive Nation. So it's fun. My daughter plays a little tennis, a little basketball. So yeah, a bit of a GM, just kind of shuffling schedules, making sure, seeing what we can play, what we can't. But it's a lot of fun.
Did you because I know you were a fan of all sports, but you set roots in Texas, and you really have to learn a lot about what goes into this crazy football culture that only that state really knows. But did that give you kind of a different appreciation or perspective on maybe new tennis parents, tying it back to that, who have kids that are, chasing the junior dream, but maybe don't know all that goes into it? I mean, maybe is there a little different perspective there now?
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting, right? Because listen, my wife and I, we always joke like, wow, we are parents of 2 football players. Didn't really see that one coming. My wife played high school basketball, so she had some basketball roots. Obviously, I'm tennis. But I remember when we first, moved to Texas, like we saw people like tailgating Friday Night Lights. It was, like a 15,000 seat stadium. We're like, what are those people doing? And I remember the real estate agent was like, oh, it's Friday Night Football, high school football. And we're like, I thought it was all about the Cowboys. They're like, no. It's about Friday Night Lights. And, be careful what you kind of scoff at, because we kind of scoffed at it like, oh, that'll never be us. But of course, that is us. That's our life. We're super excited. But, listen, we never forced our kids. We're obviously a sporty family. So, my oldest, Graham, actually started in baseball. Baseball is kind of my favorite sport. I love it. Never got to play. Played tennis my whole life. But I always said that if I grew up in the States, I would have been a baseball player for sure. Love baseball. And then even my second son, Brody, he actually started off playing tennis. We used to go to the USTA tournaments. We played a ton of tournaments, travel. So I was a tennis dad for a while, which was, it was cool if that was the route they wanted to take. But in the end, they preferred the team sports. Like I said, my daughter's trying to make her goal is to make the high school tennis team. So we'll see where that goes. But, it's really just to kind of have fun and, not, you never have goals of, we let the kids establish their goals. I mean, it's almost impossible to get a college scholarship. It's even more impossible to play professionally in any sport. So it's about being realistic. But, if you want to do it, go ahead. We're behind you 100%.
Well, it's commendable. I wish them all the best on what they do. It's been great to follow along. Mark Knowles here on the Inside In Tennis podcast, who, by the way, cleared it up before we started, had nothing to do with Luka going to his Lakers. He's still loyal to Dallas, and he loves it there, but he is a Laker fan. So
I was sad for the city of Dallas for sure, but man, how did the Lakers land Luka?
I know.
That one's going to hurt.
You got to have a star. You got to have a star here. But yeah, the future looks bright all of a sudden for your Lakers. But no, look, Mark, I appreciate it. Thanks for giving us time here on the Inside In Tennis podcast. We'll have to do this again. All the best with the family going forward, with Coach and Jessica Pegula going forward, and of course, broadcasting on Tennis Channel. Can't wait to hear from you soon. But thanks for coming on the show.
Thanks, Mitch. Always a pleasure. Thanks for having me on.
That was Mark Knowles. This was the Inside In Tennis podcast. We're available on all your podcast platforms. Just go to Apple, Spotify, iHeart, or Amazon Music, wherever you get your shows. Subscribe so the episodes automatically download. Leave a nice rating or review if you'd be so kind. And you can watch every video episode on the YouTube channel at Mitch Michals as well. We're back in a couple of days. We got clay court tennis to talk about. So the show doesn't stop. The season doesn't stop. I can't wait to see where this exciting 2025 tennis season leads us next. But for Mark Knowles, I'm Mitch Michals. This was the Inside In Tennis podcast. Thank you for listening, and I'll talk to you soon.